Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when this episode reaches you. Welcome to a brand new episode of I'm As Shocked As You Are. Today we've got Owen Cutts in the studio. Owen is a multi-platinum selling music producer, singer, and songwriter. Well known for his production work for Stormzy, Big Zoo, Green Tea Peng, Childish Gambino. He's also from Northwest London, where I am from. We actually went to the same school, so we do get quite nostalgic in this episode. You might also know him from the Reggie Yates podcast, which is a much bigger podcast than this one in a way that I'm just totally fine with. I like having fewer subscribers. You'll also notice that my voice is a little bit hoarse at the start of this episode, but I just want to let you guys know, for those that were worried, it was nothing serious and I am feeling much, much better. Let's get into it. Owen Cutts in the studio. Hi, Owen.
Hello, mate.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you could make it. First of all, I just want to say I've got no idea why my voice is like this.
Yeah.
I'm not hungover. I don't drink anymore.
Good.
I haven't been screaming at anyone.
Yeah.
I literally don't know, and it's that kind of I guess sod's law. You know, you have I was really looking forward to today, and you know, for me, it's like I've started to record these things like semi-regularly, but every day, and it feels like podcast day. It's like a good day. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Now, how's your morning been, man?
Yeah, morning's been good. Pretty chilled, really.
Nice. Do you jump straight on your phone when you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, I do.
Like, and on socials and stuff?
Yeah, I do.
Do you find that is... Because for me, there are times where when I've been on my sort of spiritual A game, I don't look at my phone for the first like half an hour. I kind of like make breakfast, kind of sit with myself.
Yeah.
I had a phase where I was meditating.
Nice.
And but nowadays I'm just straight on the coffee, straight on the vape, straight on social media. And I find that like if I go straight and look on my feed, within 10 minutes of me being awake, there's already at least 5 people doing better than me.
Oh, really? Is that how you see it?
Or doing things that you know, because it's, I guess everyone posts the best bits of their life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like the human brain should be taking in that much information that quickly.
No, definitely shouldn't. I think they say you should see the sunlight, right, before you...
Yeah, exactly.
Before you
at least open the curtains.
Open the curtains or stick your head outside or something.
Yeah.
I've been through phases, really.
Okay.
My recent phase is I put my phone in a drawer in the evenings.
Yeah.
So as soon as I get in, like especially if I have the kids, then I put my phone in my drawer.
Yes.
Or if I have company, or if I'm with friends, whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
If I don't need my phone, I put it in the drawer.
Yes.
If I'm there, like if I'm hanging out just on my own, then I'll go on my phone. But it's hard.
So it is so hard. Like that pull. I think it's an unhealthy pull.
Oh, yeah,
definitely. And it's happened to all of us. It kind of doesn't matter what generation, I think, or like certainly our generation and below.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like. I mean, this is like two old fogies having a chat about the good old times. But like, I'm really glad I didn't grow up with social media.
Oh, mate.
And what is it like for your children? So how old are your kids?
They're 8 and 5, nearly 6.
That's really interesting to talk about. Do they have iPads? Do they have iPhones?
The interesting thing is, my son has an iPad.
Your son is 8?
My son's 8.
Okay, yeah.
He has an iPad and a Switch.
Okay.
And
Switch is like a Game Boy.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so that's...
Switches are amazing.
I haven't
Oh my God.
been on Switch.
They're ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah.
I imagine that the games are far superior than anything we had.
Yeah. But they still have Mario Kart. They still
brilliant.
Still hark back to some classics.
You also at some point mentioned, because actually, Owen, you're like one of my favourite people from afar. Like we don't talk loads, but like, I mean, I obviously love your music.
Yeah.
And I really like your sense of humour. But over the years, I've remembered things that you've posted, whether they're just kind of like weirdly certain tweets and observations that just kind of stuck with me.
Okay.
But you've also talked about, I hope I haven't got this wrong, the multiplayer 4-way GoldenEye experience.
Yes.
So I'm really enjoying talking to you because we are around the same age. So we get to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
But... So you're talking about the Nintendo Switch and they've still got Mario Kart. Just very quickly, do you have amazing memories of the 4-way multiplayer GoldenEye?
So for me, multiplayer GoldenEye game was like a turning point in like
just
society.
It was
or in my ecosystem.
It was like a new type of joy. It was just completely.
Yeah. I remember my friend Sam. He used to have I don't know if he had a massive TV or he had a projector. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, I think it was a projector, and it was the first time I'd played a game on a projector, and it was GoldenEye. And so with the 4 multi-screen, your screen was as big as a TV.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Did you have rules? We had rules.
Yeah, well, proximity mines. So I played it so much. So do you remember Facility? This is massively probably alienating most of the audience here. But so I was very good in Facility, and I knew that when you die, exactly where you wake up.
In the toilet, don't get wake up.
Exactly.
In the toilet.
So I would just put a proximity mine where I knew they're going to wake up, and they're dead. And so that wasn't allowed.
Oh, you were banned?
I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I could still play, but I couldn't do that. How about you? Did you have some finesses?
Or some rules were you weren't allowed to be odd job.
What? Yes.
Odd
Why
job,
again?
Because he was so small.
Because he was so small, he's hard to kill.
Yeah. Really hard to kill. So you weren't allowed. You weren't allowed to be odd job.
Even though he's in the game, and that should be fair
totally
game.
Like fine.
Okay.
Even though you could also kneel. Do you remember you could kneel and go around? That was a move. But you couldn't be odd job. We played
same, by the way.
Yeah,
same.
Weird. Poor old odd job. You never got.
Never got picked.
Never got picked. You had to play. I think it was called License to Kill, where it was like one shot
or Golden Gun.
Was it Golden Gun? I can't remember what it was called.
Something like that. Yeah.
But whatever that was, that one shot dead. That was the rules.
Yeah.
And we'd rarely play Facility actually because of that. Because
people knew where you were going to wake up.
Yeah.
It was very hard with Temple because it was more kind of like I didn't get that advanced.
Temple was sick.
Temple was amazing. Yeah,
Temple was sick. Who was your guy? Who would you pick? I had a guy.
So there was like obviously Bond, Natalia.
Yeah.
This is such nostalgia for me, and I wasn't planning on talking about any of this, but this is brilliant. Oddjob, Bond, Natalia. What was the IT guy? Do you remember? There was the IT hacker who's in the film. I'm sure he was a character. What other characters were there then?
Well, I was always Siberian Special Forces. I remember that was like my guy. Like, don't pick Siberian Special Forces because that's me.
Yeah.
And he was kind of like he was in like a winter camo.
Okay, yeah, right.
I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah. I mean, there was something about that. It was that and WWF wrestling for me at that age where it's just, we were of that age where staying up till 4 a.m. was just so exciting. And you would just play GoldenEye and did you ever were you ever into WWF and stuff as a kid?
The game or the actual wrestling?
No, the actual wrestling.
Yeah. I went to SummerSlam 92 at Wembley.
Shut up.
Yeah, I went.
So how old were you in 92 then, would you say?
In 92, I was 9.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I went to No Mercy.
No way.
And it was in London and it was at Wembley Arena. And because the thing is, obviously, because of the time difference, as a kid, if you wanted to watch it, your mum would have to let you stay up until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So I would be asking my friend Sean Thompson whether I could stunner him. Because we used to do wrestling moves on each other whilst waiting for the wrestling. And do you know what? This links into what I wanted to talk about as well with you, is that we went to the same school. Yeah. We went to Hampstead School. And I have memories, it links in perfectly with the wrestling. It is in assembly, we used to perform some really dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember the Hardy Boys in WWF? And they used to do that. I can't remember what the move was called, but it was jumping off the top rope. Yeah. Like some swanton.
Yeah.
Kill me now kind of thing.
Mate.
I'm ready to die for this. And those moves are really dangerous. And I remember my mum's thinking, and we do I don't know why I keep mentioning my friend Sean Thompson, but he was very small.
Yeah.
So you could do a lot of moves on him. And he was up for it.
Nice.
And so, like tombstones where you pick the guy. So we used to do all those moves. And I think eventually on WWF, they had to put up something before the show saying, please do not replicate. Yeah. Because I think that kids were getting injured and disabled.
Mate, see that? I'm missing a tooth there. Or a bit of a tooth there. That's from a clothesline. That's from my friend Joe.
This is what I'm saying.
Clothesline. Just whacked
Yeah.
I'm still missing. I haven't ever got it replaced.
For the love of wrestling,
For the
you
love
paid
of-
the price.
Yeah, definitely.
But like a lot of these moves that what I was doing, they were very necky. Like, real damage could be done.
Tombstone's horrible. Tombstone's like
Properly
serious.
horrible. Yeah. And actually, like, and so I remember it terrifying my mum.
Do you remember? I remember a time where I knew it was fake, but I still loved it. Do you remember the crossover?
I remember my dad telling me it's fake, almost in the same way of like, can you just not tell me that Father Christmas isn't real? I'm 4.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, and I remember like sort of sticking up for it. Do you know what I mean?
Being like, no way. There's no way.
There's no way it's fake. And then I got to the age where I knew it was fake, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
And now as an adult even, I don't watch it now, but now you're just like, well, this is so creative.
Yeah.
I mean, the storylines.
Yeah.
You know, and that, Attitude Era,
Yeah.
which is my era, so Stone Cold, Rock, I guess I've got a theory actually that I think about the year 1999 quite a lot.
Do you?
Because the Attitude Era was at its height.
Yeah.
That was when I got obsessed with DMC and I got into scratching and beat juggling. And I remember the 99 DMC World Championships and I remember every routine from there.
Which one did you win? You
I
won
was the young
Junior.
UK DJ 2002 DMC champion.
Dude, I remember that.
Do you?
Yeah, I remember you winning that.
Yeah. Do you know something I've realised, Owen? And it's really quite... So I was so chuffed that the Corrupt FM boys were to join me. And like, I've always been really quite bold when I'm doing like a project. Usually whatever I'm doing, I'm really a passionate person about it. And so I always just kind of shoot for the stars. I just think I'm going to just message all the people that I would love to have on.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that can happen? They won't get back to me. And the Corrupt FM boys got back to me straight away, and they were so up for it. And I realised that like a lot of the guests and people I'm speaking to remember that DJ IQ time. That so many years have gone by, but like that, what I did there still holds kind of weight. It's like it's still remembered.
Yeah.
And I think that during that time, because there was social media, it was impossible to sort of quantify exactly how well I was doing. I knew I was working with some cool people, but I was just busy for the love of it, just doing it. Obviously, people were turning up to the gigs, but we didn't have the metrics that you have now. And I don't think followers equates to how well you're doing necessarily. Yeah. But it is it's a measuring stick, I guess. Yeah. And so I had no idea. And so years and years later, and I'm reaching out to these, different people, and you've kind of just mentioned it as well. It's like, that's so nice to be remembered for that because I certainly wasn't doing it with caring whether it was a big deal or not. I just had that youthful obsession with it.
Yeah.
But you remember it,
of course,
that time.
because I think what you did, like, I think we all secretly wanted to do, to be the best scratch DJ in the UK, young. There was something about it that was like, and I don't know whether this has been sort of like made up over time, but did our school tell you to stay and you told them to do one?
So
was that true?
No. What?
The story went that you won the junior DMC championships, and like we were hip hop heads, right? Yeah. Like, and our school was quite big on hip hop. Like
more so on garage though. I felt niche doing what I was doing.
Interesting.
Not intentionally.
No, I think the garage wave at our school was insane.
Of course.
But they were like...
unavoidable.
Yeah, completely. But there was also a little pocket of hip-hop heads that like...
There was.
Really knew their shit.
Yes,
and you could like go to them for like the latest mixtapes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think what you did was like... It was almost like what we all wanted to do. Like a dream, It's like... And then there was this rumor that school tried to make you stay on. It's like, right.
Because I was a good example of...
No, because I think they were like, oh, you're going to ruin your life if you... What's this DJ thing you're doing? And we were all just like...
My head went so west. I thought you meant the school was like, you're doing really well and this is great for us as like a representative of someone who's doing well in music. No, well, I mean, I think generally I left at AS levels.
Yeah.
That's where I got to. So then you do your A levels. And so, I mean, I think that I mean, I guess they wanted all their students probably to do the whole time. But just to go back to what happened during that period is Hampstead School is such an interesting one to talk to you about, right? Because I think I've said this to you before, is I think it was I'm very glad I went to that school because I think it was quite a good school to prepare you for life.
I agree.
Because there was a lot of different, from all sorts of backgrounds, kind of, and so I just think that, and that's, you get out into the world and, it's multifaceted and I don't have anything to compare it to, but it was quite rough at points. Definitely. Like I felt that I got into quite a lot of fights just because people wanted my Nokia. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or it was either you got the time, that was one, and you think, oh fuck no.
Yeah.
Or have you got 20p?
20p, yeah.
That was the thing of like straight away you knew that you were gonna have to, either just be like,
bro, you knew like from school, like you had this like spidey sense, I think anyway.
Well, you had to develop it.
You developed this like weird spidey sense where it was like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Or these lot are all right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean? Like I had this I used to look at people's trainers weirdly.
Right. Okay.
If like a group of boys approached you.
Yeah.
I'd look at their trainers.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, we're in trouble here.
And where did you because what's so interesting and why it's so interesting to talk to you is because you were a few years above me.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
So you were very cool and somewhat out of reach. And you were into hip hop. You were in crews that I wanted to be in. Yeah. That I kind of didn't really sort of understand where you all met up, or I was never part of it. Yeah. And that's so interesting that you then talk about my hip hop journey and then the success that I had, because at school it was like the girls that I fancied wanted to go out with you and your mates because you were the cool older lot. And you were into hip hop and you were already doing things. And I don't know, like maybe my thing was like creeping on a come up, but I didn't feel part of any kind of cool hip hop crew. But when Bigger Fish came into the school, that was when all DJs were mixing garage, and just weirdly simultaneously, Bigger Fish came into the school. I was learning to DJ, but going home and I knew about DMC videos, so they wanted me to kind of blend all this garage, and I was like, well, no, can I just do a bit of this? And can I turn the turntables that way, please? Yeah. And can I put 2 copies of the same song on, please? And they were kind of like, where's this kid getting these ideas from? Yeah. And I remember I performed once in assembly, which was kind of fun, because it was so different to, do you remember like DJ Spoiler? Yeah. Robert. Yeah. He was amazing. There's some DJs that I've just never heard ever go out of time. Yeah. Ever. Like EZ. Yeah. But, I'm not like necessarily, equating Spoiler with EZ, but Spoiler was amazing. And to me, he was really like the best. Yeah. And so I don't know kind of where I'm going with this, but so I got I started doing well in hip hop completely outside of what was going on hip hop wise at the school. Yeah. But I mean, what were memories like that for you? Because it felt elitist, but only because I was, I guess, not that you guys were elitist, but it felt like something I wanted to be involved with, didn't really make friends with the older lot. And I don't know if many people in my year did. A few of us sort of made friends. Yeah. I think for me, school's an interesting one because, like, there's definitely a period of my life where telling people about the kind of school we went to felt quite kind of cool in a way. Right. Like, telling the stories of, like, the fights and the gangs and the... Yeah. Like, let's be honest, it wasn't the greatest school, you know what I mean? Like, and there was a period of my life, I don't know how old I was, and then I kind of came out of that period and was like, actually, that wasn't cool. Yeah, wasn't the stuff that went down. Yeah, some of the stuff that went down at school, some of the people at school, like, that actually wasn't a cool place to be. But you never know, because you sort of don't have anything to compare it to. Yeah, but it was quite violent at times, and it was quite, like... It was. Like... It's quite nice to have that validated, because I think I was quite fearful a lot of the time, and for you to also say, no, it actually was. No, it was. I saw some stuff at school that I don't think anyone should see at school. But then, like I say, then you go through a period in life where you think like telling those stories, like, oh yeah, I went to a rough school, kind of, I don't know, makes you feel but that's bullshit. Yeah. Like, fuck that. I wish I'd never seen any of that crap. Yeah. Or no, I wish I'd never been mugged or robbed. Yeah. Or like, when people used to wait outside. Do you remember that? Do you remember Red Pitch? The fights on Red Pitch? I refereed a fight on Red Pitch.
How weird is that? What a weird sentence.
What a strange role.
Like, it was my friend's little brother.
All right, boys, okay.
No, for real. Don't. And I said to I was probably...
I'd rather have been the referee than in it.
Oh, mate, I was never in it.
Yeah.
But I remember it was my friend's little brother was having a fight. I'm not going to say any names.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, oh, God, I don't want him to get, like, absolutely, like, mullered.
Yeah.
Like, not that I thought he was going to, but, like, he was fighting this other boy. And then so they all, like, marched down to red pitch. And I went down and, like... said like to the corners almost like to both corners of the because you put them in the pitch. For those who don't know, if you wanted to have a fight at our school was on a council estate pretty much.
It was,
and so the football pitch of the council estate is where you'd have fights. So and what would happen is you'd go to the pitch and then they'd put the two fighters in the pitch and shut the gate. So everyone around the gated, fenced-off pitch would watch this fight.
It's horrible.
Like, think about that
really
as adults. Like, think about how horrible and violent and like gladiatorial that is.
It's funny that it's called Hampstead School because it makes it sound a lot more posh than it was. It wasn't posh at all. And I was thinking about this as well, that like, it's called Hampstead School. It's definitely not in Hampstead. And if you come out of Hampstead School, I think you can have sort of two different experiences because if you take a left, you're in West Hampstead. But if you went home and took a right, you're in Cricklewood. And they're quite different. And so I was a turn righter. I was like the one who go turn, go. And so you go past, was it Westcroft? And stuff like that. And no, it was extreme. I remember when I first, because I'm quite like, I can have quite a loud personality. I enjoy chatting. I enjoy like, being, present and outspoken a little bit, even though that sounds really wanky, but like, I guess you know what I mean. And so I got to Hampstead School and I was loud. I was really loud. And I was more so, I guess, like distracting other kids and just being a bit of a class clown. But when I first got there, because I was so loud, I think the harder kids just, or in the school, they assumed I was tough. And I was up for fighting because I was so kind of in your face. And very quickly I got humbled. And I got into a fight, lost it. And then I just kind of went sporty. And I thought, this is going to be my crowd. But it was, the only other thing I can think to say about the school is that, you say that you wouldn't like to have seen certain things that you saw or experienced, but like, prepares you for life.
Dude.
Like it would be, I think it's such a big contributor to like nothing wrong with it. But had we gone to private school, I think we would be different people, probably have a lot of the same qualities, but I really, like I said, like at the start, I'm glad I went to that school. And it was just a good preparing for life. I'm
glad as well, because I wouldn't be doing the job I do now if I didn't.
Do you not think so? Exactly.
No, I wouldn't, definitely.
And as a positive, I guess it did encourage creativity. I mean, even having Bigger Fish come in there.
Yeah, they did do a lot of good things. I remember Skibbity came in once.
Right.
And he was like my hero. And
So how did all the music start for you then? Because for me, it was actually Bigger Fish coming into the school.
Right.
And discovering DMC outside of school. But where did it all start for you? And I remember Underground Alliance. That was the first I'd heard of you and something that was going on that I really wanted to be a part of that felt, like out of reach. Is that where it all started with you? Did it start with writing lyrics with your mates?
It started with like... So my dad would play me music and like his like record collection, and music was a big part of my childhood. We used to go to a folk festival in Devon every year, and like I just thought that's what you did. But like looking back, like no one else did it. But so I'd be like listening to like Bulgarian folk, Hungarian folk, African folk, like all this kind of like like all this music, and we'd get the tapes and we'd listen to them on the drive home, and it was very much like a sort of early education in world music, almost like that there is music outside of Michael Jackson. There is stuff you can sort of So that was definitely the start of piquing my interest in like other sounds.
A folk festival in Devon.
It's called Sidmouth Folk Festival. We went every single year, and every single year there'd be like the headliner would be like, I remember there's this guy called Abdul TJ who was an African artist, and it was like, I couldn't believe my art. Like it was the most vibrant, amazing music.
Right.
But because you're so young, I didn't know that it was like any different to like.
Do you have brothers
else.
and sisters?
Yeah, I got a sister. So me and my
you'd all
sister,
just go and get in the car.
we'd all get in the
drive
camper
down
van, and drive down to Sidmouth, and there'd be their parade on the by the sea, where it was like they'd all march down the promenade with like the Bulgarians. It wasn't teams, but it was like the Bulgarians would come, then the Hungarians, then the Finnish, then the Irish, then the African, then the Swedish. So it was like all this music.
God, that's amazing.
And
to
then
be
I
exposed to that at such a young age.
I got really, really, really into the Beatles when I was about 10. So this is the thing with our school, is what I'm talking about. So I got really into the Beatles when I was about 10, and I was playing cricket, at like a decent level.
Okay.
And then I went to Hampstead, and it was like, you don't fucking listen to the Beatles, and you certainly don't play cricket. So you better fix the fuck. And I remember I quit cricket. I quit.
It's really sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
I quit cricket, and I didn't tell anyone I liked the Beatles.
Okay.
Like, it was like,
It's your little
you listen
secret.
to House and Garage. No, you listen to Jungle, because
Yeah.
I started in '94, so it was like Jungle
Yeah.
or hip hop.
Yeah.
And then I started to make the connections between crew. Like, I don't know if it's the same anymore because of the internet, but like, it was like the Nirvana heads.
Yes.
They used to like Wu-Tang.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the grungy dudes, they were into Wu and like Gravediggers.
Yes, yes.
And I'd be like, wow, okay, cool. So what, like, but then like the kind of like more street, if you like, heads would be into like West Coast. They'd be into like, they'd be into like Dre and Ice Cube. And, and then, so I was trying to like figure out these differences.
Yeah.
But without actually talking to anyone about it, because I didn't want anyone to find out that I actually went home and listened to Queen. You know what I mean? Or whatever it was. And
It's the pros and cons of that school, because it's a shame that like you go to school at a time where you're just trying to figure out who you are anyway.
Yeah.
So you're like, you know, like little Owen who just loves cricket, he just no outside influence,
cricket
and then
the Beatles.
suddenly these things that we have, you know, we naturally love, kind of get beaten out of us a little bit.
And then I remember getting robbed for the first time. I remember getting robbed for the first time, and it was like, you're not in Kansas anymore. Like, you know, that feeling of just like, like, oh shit, this is.
Was there? Where did you grow up? Where?
So I grew up in Queen's Park.
In Queen's Park, okay. So a bit nicer than what was around Hampstead.
A bit. At the
even
time,
where I lived was quite. So I grew up in Willesden Green.
Yeah.
Which was quite nice. It was just on the edge. I've always been just kind of just on the edge of the roughest parts of Northwest London, but never kind of in. Yeah. And then
if you think,
and then I was in Dollis Hill when nothing happens, good or bad.
Yeah. Dollis Hill is very sleepy. But I mean, Queen's Park was nothing. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was just nothing at the time. It was like we had some Irish pubs, and then. But if you think about my route to school, I'd have to walk through Kilburn, through Cricklewood, into school, into school.
Similar routes.
So like that journey, you know, posed loads of like problems and
enough to traumatise.
Enough to get robbed. That's for sure. And this is what I kind of say. Like I kind of like now I'm a bit older. It's like, oh yeah, I got robbed a bunch of times, but it's like a kind of rite of passage as a young man in London. Like everyone got robbed, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then when you get older, you're like, fuck that. Yeah. Like what kind of rite of passage is that? Yeah. You know, like no, like I never want my son to go through that. So there was like elements of school that were unbelievably valuable. Like I mean, look, that's year 7, 8, right? 9. Yeah. Like around year 9, I started to wise up, and then you start to like know yourself a little bit more, and then your network widens, and all of a sudden no one touches you because you're a solidified member of.
You're a person.
That person. Yeah. You bring value and things. Like I was always quite funny. Yes. So like the scary dudes, you just be funny. Yes. And then they leave you alone, X, Y, Z. Also being good at football. Me and my friends were good at football. Yeah. So like in Queen's Park, all the yardies from Kensal Rise would leave us alone because they'd make us play for their team. Yeah. So it was this kind of like pass. It's
really important, these sort of different ways of in a way accidentally garnering respect. But I had the football thing. I was pretty good at football. I think I still am, and I had a rude awakening a few weeks ago.
Oh no!
Because I think I'm still as fit, and I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
play like I was 18, and I just can't. It was quite shocking. But so for me, football also, and then I think for both of us, music, and finding out that you have. Because I remember being kind of bullied by a few different people, and as soon as I got good at DJing, I had there was a different vibe, you know, and I didn't get good at DJ. It was just happened by accident, but like, what a lovely result that I had some heat taken off me in terms of bullying, because when people could see that I was quite a good DJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's fickle, isn't it? School's fickle. I mean, how did it start? I think for me, it was garage, really, like house and garage.
So were you one of the garage heads?
I was a garage MC.
You're a garage MC.
I was on pirate radio.
And that's where your musical journey, career started, would you say?
I guess so, yeah. I guess, like, writing lyrics, like, going on radio, doing sets, like MCing at, like, birthday parties and youth clubs, and then just, like...
And MCing was first
MCing was first.
Before anything else?
Yeah, MCing was first. And, like, really enjoying writing. I remember, like, really enjoying writing. And then, like, being, like, quite good at it.
Yeah.
And then being, like, people would say... Oh yeah, you're a sick MC, and that feeling was like I enjoyed that. That was nice.
Gold.
Yeah,
it's golden
wow.
feeling.
And then you were kind of like, I guess in the era that you're talking about, when you said we were like,
you were like year 10.
Yeah,
I was sort of like year 7, 10, year 8.
Yeah, I'd say that was when we kind of like solidified as like personalities in the ecosystem that was Hampstead School.
Yes.
And like, we weren't getting robbed anymore.
There was a kind of I don't know, a very key player in your crew, very tall. Yeah. Haven't heard his name in a very long time. Elian, I think. Did he have? Is that his rap name?
His rap name was Harry.
Harry, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are like the earliest names I remember of people were like, wow, these guys have something, and you would do events.
We'd do events.
And all the girls that I'd fancy would be going there.
Right.
And be into you guys.
Right. That's funny.
That, or the boys that had peds.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, peds.
Yeah. I never had a ped. But then also kind of...
Peds were a huge deal.
They were a huge deal. Like if you had a ped.
Yeah, Gilera runner. If you had a Gilera runner.
Yeah, exactly.
You were like the king
And then
of the
also
world.
what speaks to kind of the sort of intimidation factor of the school is that they used to be doing like wheelies up and, across the front of the school, which I used to find a little bit kind of like...
Yeah. But that strip was slightly terrifying.
It was. I mean, it was opposite the estate. Yeah, exactly.
Like, because year 9, 10, I became a part of it. That's the thing.
Right. See, I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know how I survived. I think I got into DJing, and kind of back to what you were saying, I left at AS levels. Yeah. And like, luckily... I had parents that had sort of experienced themselves become kind of successful with creative means. Do you know what I mean? They weren't like, you have to be a doctor or you have to go to university. They wanted me to, and it took a lot of persuasion. But eventually they were like, if you take this seriously, we'll allow you to go off. Yeah. And then after winning the DMC thing, I was like doing gigs up and down the country, and I don't think I ever looked back. You know, some people when they leave the school, they do the nice thing and go back and visit it, perhaps talk to the kids in the class they used to be. I never went back. I never went back.
Yeah.
And now they have a school uniform, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And we got away with not having to have one.
I never had a uniform.
That's an interesting part of the school as well, is the fact that like it was quite rare that like most schools had uniforms. So I guess we got to kind of experiment with our identity.
Yeah. However, I always say like, I never had a uniform, and people were like, "What?"
Yeah, people were baffled. They were.
People were baffled. But then thinking about it, we didn't have a uniform, but there was a uniform. Do you know what I mean? Like there was a uniform.
There was, exactly.
There was like, for me, it was straight cut Levi 501s, Reebok Classics.
Yes.
Dude, were you ever a part of the like? We used to wear like businessman shirt. We used to wear like YSL shirts.
Yeah, of course.
Like buttoned up YSL.
Yeah, with jeans.
With straight cut Levi's.
Yeah.
Reebok Classics. And then there was a period, this is mental.
Lynx Africa.
There was a period where we ditched bags. Yeah. We got rid of our bags and we started to come to school with architect portfolios. Do you remember that?
I'm not sure I do. But
We had these funny. We had these He's like, YSL shirts, Gap caps,
Yeah, of course.
straight cut jeans, Reebok classics
with the business
with the
folder.
like attaché case almost.
Yeah,
but they were
yeah.
thin. They were like thin.
A bit see-through.
Some of them were see-through. Some of them were like leather. But that was
But
the
you
look.
mean sort
or
of
the
under
JD
the
Sports
arm
bag
with the JD Sports bag,
JD
of
Sports
course.
bag was
Yeah.
that was the one.
Do you remember? Did you ever go to the black tie ball?
Yeah, I got
That was when I had my first kiss and a bit of fiddly stuff.
Foreplay.
Yeah, a bit of foreplay.
So the black tie ball was at Camden Palace, right, which is now Coco.
Yeah, I remember it. Well, can I say something really quickly?
Yeah.
Just quite disgusting how it was that we'd all then talk about how many girls that we had kissed.
So this is my point.
And so now I just as an adult looking back, I just think, but what about the hygiene?
Gross, right?
Proper gross.
So before my first one, they was like, I pulled 20 girls, or I pulled this, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, this is like some sort of dreamland. I was like, this party is like, what is this? It's like a teenage like fantasy. Like what you're telling me? You go, you listen to music, and you just kiss loads of girls. Yeah, like for me that was like, oh my god, where do I sign up? So I got this ticket, right, and you had to wear suits.
You did.
You had to wear a suit.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I had a suit. I think I borrowed one, and it was all baggy. And then I got there, dude. Do you know how many girls I kissed?
How many?
None. Bro, none.
You wouldn't have told anyone though. I mean, if your mate has kissed 18, you've kissed 19.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
None, dude. Can you imagine the disappointment? Nothing.
Did
Other people like kissing everyone.
Did you tell no one?
I didn't tell anyone. Of course I didn't tell anyone.
Well, it's just, again, sort of looking back at it, it's a really interesting scenario in there because you're at the age where everyone's sort of discovering their own sexuality for the first time. Do you know what I mean? Lots of sort of, But
can you imagine, like, looking back, can you imagine, like, working there? Like, can you imagine, like, being a part of the venue, like, staff?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
all these, like, 14, 15-year-olds flood the building in suits and start kissing each other.
Lots of hair gel.
Lots of hair gel.
Lots of meticulous at home getting it just
and do you remember
right.
The aim was to get on the flyer? Do you remember?
Yeah, of course.
It was like, oh my God, you're on the flyer.
Yeah, even the bigger fish flyer was a big deal if you got on there, and I made it just at the bottom there. I sneaked in.
Man,
1
bigger
or 2
fish.
years.
I completely forgotten about those guys.
Bigger Fish, I think, had events at Camden Palace when it was Camden Palace. But I was thinking about, I don't know if it was for Bigger Fish or the Black Tie Ball, but one of them, they had EZ play. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Who was there when I went? I think
some
it
big
was
DJs.
Luck and Neat maybe with it when I went.
I remember Spoiler in science class telling me about SIA Little Man. And he was like, just these moments that you just don't forget that weirdly stay with you. We're in science class. And he told, and I don't know where he is out in the world, but Robert, spoiler.
Big up Robert.
If you're listening somehow, somewhere, respect. And you were, were a Don. And, but I remember in science class him saying, oh yeah, I just bought this new record called S.I. Little Man. And I was like, I wonder what that is. And then I went and checked it out. And then I went to either the Black Tie Ball or Bigger Fish, and EZ mixed it up in this incredible way.
It's still the best.
And it's still is the best. I mean, there are certain, like sort of 138 Trek, of course. I remember Chopper. Yeah. You know, the jungle tune Chopper. There were a few with the helicopter. There was no hype like it.
No.
I mean, it's great. I got even little goosebumps thinking about it because these songs were just, they were sort of more than songs.
I remember my friend had Hobson's Choice on vinyl.
I've missed, I don't know.
Hobson's Choice was this like really like dark side garage tune that like had the longest build, like longest intro.
Great for mixing.
Yeah. And there was another one, Reach and Spin. There was a tune called Reach and Spin.
I don't remember
and
Reach
as
and
an MC,
Spin.
if you could catch the drop on Reach and Spin, you were a don.
Okay,
I remember that was like, and I could catch the drop.
What are your memories of dark? This is such a great like sort of segue because we were both active and loving music before grime or before it had a name.
Yeah.
Now that was really, and I talked to you a lot about Theo Russell, who is like, I think you were really good friends with his brother. He was such a good friend of mine. He was in my year, and so there was a little bit of a connection to you and your boys, only through sort of Theo that he was kind of hanging out with you guys, and basically he was really into Nasty Crew and early Dizzy and D Double, Sharky Major, all the so he was and so I just remember that the garage was getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
It was getting more minimal.
Yeah.
And then Wiley had all the Esky Beat stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember it didn't even have a name, and they were. I don't know. Wiley obviously had the song "What Do You Call It?" Urban. I remember when it was being called Urban for a while, and that was just also interesting to be alive at a time where it wasn't called grime yet.
Yeah, well, I don't think they called it grime. I think someone called it grime, like a journalist called it grime.
Right.
And then it started to catch on. I don't quote me on that, but
Yeah.
I don't think they were like, this is grime music.
It sort of needed a name because it was so clearly something new.
Well, in hindsight, the funny thing about grime is like I can look back on grime with hindsight.
Yeah.
And feel like for the first time in our history, we had a type of music that sounded like East London.
Yes.
So like, if you think about like West Coast hip hop, and this only really happened when I went there, right? To New York and LA.
Yeah.
So West Coast hip hop sounds like LA. It's wide and it's low.
Yeah.
And it's slow and it's hot.
That's really interesting.
You know, and if you look into New York hip hop, it's
dirty.
It's close and it's cold and it's dirty and it's
really
tall.
Interesting. I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, you listen to Shook Ones or like Mobb Deep, that's very New York, or you listen to Cypress Hill.
Yeah,
which is very like East Coast, West Coast. So I felt for the first time, because effectively what we were doing with hip hop was like, we were just trying to be DJ Premier, right? We were just like making like primo beats and rapping over them, right? In an English accent.
Yeah.
But what the Grime Boys were doing was like, they were making music for their environment. They were making Bow.
Yeah.
You know, they were making East London.
Which could be argued is hip hop. I mean, certainly the essence of it
For sure.
is like, I'm going to make music with what I have around.
Yeah.
And it's going to sound like our environment.
Yeah.
And we're not going to listen to anyone else, and we're just doing this. I mean, you know, grime is not hip hop, but like the spirit behind grime is very hip hop, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like, well, for me, it's more like punk. It's more like it follows the same linear as like punk did. Yeah. Whereas like hip hop follows like jazz.
Yeah.
I feel like grime follows punk, where it was like, this music's not for you. So I don't give a fuck if you like it or not.
And I think it was just the music of the youth that don't want to compromise in any kind of way. It's got rebellion.
Yeah,
I don't think that hardly anyone probably that was making grime in the early days thought this is deriving from punk, but it's like just an attitude that inevitably arises when from the youth that want to carve out their own thing.
Yeah, it's repetitive, it's aggressive, it's industrial,
uncompromising.
It's uncompromising.
Yeah.
And like when it first arrived, I was into like Mos Def and like Talib Kweli, and I was into like Lyrical Miracle sort of hip, and I bucked against it at first. Yeah, because
so did I.
It was like, oh, these guys can't rap. Sort of.
I think I wouldn't. I was kind of perhaps a bit too frightened to get involved.
Yeah. Because those like Lord of the Mics things.
I felt kind of Lord of the Mics.
They looked kind of scary.
But there was a lot of violence going on like around that scene for sure, and almost the people like kind of the people that have survived it. I mean, I know that there have been some really like, Dizzy, Wiley, they went through some tough times, you know what I mean? And getting stabbed and stuff like that. And like, luckily I sort of managed to avoid it. And I guess I always gravitated towards like, UK hip hop actually, which is why I was so like happy when Jest wanted me to be his DJ. That was like, but I was already a fan. But I think there must have been an element of like, I feel safer here as well, because it was more kind of like, and there was that sort of, I remember them being criticised for UK hip hop being very middle class and rapping about the moon and the stars and it not being very street and stuff like that. It wasn't actually. And it was kind of like student backpack kind of thing. Yeah. But, I don't think it was much to do with the fact that I felt safer there, but I also really gravitated towards, like you said, growing up on like Gangstar and DJ Premier. And I don't know what it is, why going backwards you gravitated towards cricket and then sort of what you were into. I don't know what decides that, but that's almost the great thing about being a human being. You often don't know why you gravitate towards certain things. Yeah. And so UK hip hop was just like, I had a friend called Evan. Yeah. And he was really into Skinny Man. Yeah. And he always talked about Skinny Man, and I hadn't heard about Skinny Man. So it's like all these people that you meet are like really important because they plant little seeds.
Definitely.
And I remember, just going back quickly, of DJing on a Hampstead School party, which was on a boat. Yeah. And I played Mudfam, which was over that Redman beat with the epic choir-like intro. I can't remember.
Was it Adam F and Redman?
Adam F and Redman. Yeah. You're so great, Owen. I love that we've got all the same kind of references, and we all know we're both totally like into the same stuff. Yeah. And but it was a dub plate which had Skinny Man Chester P on it, and everyone was playing Garage, and that was the first song that I played, and the whole boat went just fucking nuts. Yeah. It was such a great feeling, and it got reloaded, and I was like, wow, hip hop can actually do this as well.
That's amazing.
Which is really quite cool.
I mean, you talk of that, but I mean, I don't think enough people talk about. Maybe not enough people were into it, but that period of UK hip hop, I was totally obsessed. Yeah, I was totally in. Like, I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care about football. I didn't care about girls. I didn't care about. I just cared about hip hop for a little minute there, and it was Jest. Yeah. And like you being Just DJ was like, wow, you know them, you know. It was like Task Force, Jest, Brain Tax. Yeah, I love
just the whole Low Life and Y&R. Yeah. Do you know what, Owen? I was just thinking as well. Do you remember what it was like to be such a fan of an artist or an MC and not know what they look like? Yeah. This was the thing of like, you don't get that now because everyone's got an Instagram account, right? Yeah. That is something that will never come back again that made it so special of like, I don't know what DWE looks like. I don't know what Jess looks like. I don't know what Chester P looks like. Yeah. And then maybe getting like a VHS tape of Dark and Cold and then you see what they look like for the first time. That was so special. Yeah. And now you would never
know what Brain Tax looks like. I still like.
Oh, you know, I found out kind of later on, you know, but like, and all their covers were quite not obvious. You'd always, there might be like a blurry picture of them with a hood up. Yeah. But just having that kind of element of mystery around it, is now never to come back. Yeah. But I just thought of that, and so when I sort of met Jest, I didn't even know what he looked like. Yeah. Kind of like, everything felt a little bit more out of reach. But then also when you were in, you sort of didn't know how much of a big deal it was or not. The only way you could gauge it, like I said, no social media, was just how many people were turning up to gigs and stuff like that. Yeah. But no, definitely Low Life, Kung Fu, that was an incredible time and scene. So I guess sort of Pro Green knew about me from doing that stuff, and that's how the sort of Pro Green stuff happened. Yeah. And then just other stuff, you know, I've had sort of different, you know, things that I've wanted to do across my time. And every single one of them had made sense to me at the time that I was doing them. And it's interesting sort of what you get successful in because, you know, I had, you know, I rapped for a little while, which I'm kind of like sort of, I said some really terrible things over some of your beats as well. I was in a really kind of strange phase in my life, but I still like some of those songs. I really, as songs, I wouldn't dream of saying a lot of those things that I said. And they were like so terrible, but like, you know, I was going through some stuff. Yeah. But that made as much sense to me at the time as DJ IQ did. There wasn't anything different going on behind in my thinking. Yeah. So it's just interesting, and then kind of doing this and not knowing necessarily whether I'll be any good at it. And so I just think, I don't know what is informing me up there, but I just seem to follow it. It's never been like, oh, this is going to make me really successful. It's just like, I just love doing the stuff that I do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And
I mean, same really. I've never really thought about the success of anything.
Yeah. But that's great because, I mean, your journey has been pretty amazing and we spoke about it a little bit, from being a garage MC at school to then getting obsessed with hip hop, as did I. Yeah. And you were in hip hop crews rapping, recording
producing
songs. But then
record.
so at what age did you start producing? And I really want to talk to you about kind of your process even to the present day, which I kind of see as a mix of sampling and also some serious musicianship as well. And I know you collaborate with other musicians.
Yeah.
And if I can tell you the wall that I hit, because I also made beats.
Yeah.
I did an album called Brain Food in 2006, which had Verb T, Jest, Foreign Beggars.
Wow.
This is 2006. Sold nothing. But like I said, it did, everything that I've done has only been because I loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Low Life offered to make it into an EP. They said, if you shave off these tracks and make these 6, we'll put this out on Low Life. I said no. Regret it.
Yeah.
And I did a P&D deal with Boombox Distribution, which was great. I mean, they helped me out a lot, but I regret not, because I was like, you only want the songs that are Low Life record artists. The rest of this album are me and my boys. I'm not going to do that. Do you know what I mean? So there was some nobleness to do with it and sticking to some integrity, but I also kind of regret it because I could have said I had an EP out on Low Life. The wall that I hit and why I stopped making beats, which is a wall that you most certainly did not hit, which was I felt like I lacked the musicianship. So I could sample and flip samples, cut up drum breaks. I could make a really good 8-bar to 16-bar loop where any rapper or anyone could be like, that is a vibe.
Yeah.
But because I couldn't play an instrument or really understood the key in which, I was sampling in, I could never get it to where it needed to go. It was always just a good start, which, bass lines were always a problem. I would just sample, I would bass filter the sample so I'd know that was going to be in key.
Yeah.
But then I would collaborate with different musicians that would come in and go all over. And I'm like, what are you hearing that I can't hear?
Yeah.
How are you able to play this incredible bass line or play this sax? So I got frustrated with it because as my DJing was getting bigger, I thought I can't make music as good as the music that I am playing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of stopped through lack of musical sort of, notation and musicianship. I know that your music is a real special mix of sampling and live instruments. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
and what was your journey getting to that and how did it start? And
it's gone through a real journey to kind of just come back to the beginning, really. So we was a garage MC and we would be on pirate radio and we'd had a little clique that we'd do house parties with and stuff. And then hip hop just completely was overshadowing my love for garage, and I had to. So it's funny you say Elian, right? Harry and that crew. They were just the best rappers I'd ever heard. They were freestylers, written, anything. They were just they were in the year above me. So it was this kind of whoa. But they had Dempsey, who was in my year.
That's another name and a guy I remember never talked to but looked up to.
Unbelievable rapper. So they were doing stuff with him. They had this little crew called Death to Fires, and I remember
Death to
Fires.
Fires.
That was the coolest name.
Yes, I remember Death to Fires.
And I was like, "Hi, how do I get into this?" But I don't think they respected me because I was a garage MC, so it was all very sort of they saw it as very sort of rudimental ABC sort of rap.
It was very hip hop versus garage at the school, and then some.
And I didn't want to be in garage anymore. I was I want this, you know. And that's why I think you and I are quite similar. Is when we see something that we want, we just do it.
Yeah.
Until, or we try and do it until we complete it.
Yeah.
And it's whatever it is in our sort of neurological makeup.
Yeah.
There's no I don't see barriers.
Yeah.
I just I want to be there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how long it takes me. I'm going to get there. And it's not to do with fame or money.
No.
It's just I want to be in that.
That's
geographical.
Sort of what an artist is having this sort of unavoidable pull to sort of do something.
And I also had a great deal of arrogance. I think through my life it starts as arrogance, then it went to confidence, and now it's sort of self-assurance.
What I was going to say is I'm sure you have had friends who make music that are so talented but never release anything.
Dude.
And I feel like you and I, or I'm going to just speak for me here, I'm kind of the opposite. I sort of over-release. So there's like so there's people that are so talented, but they're really sort of nervous of like what people are going to think,
Yeah.
so they never actually release anything.
Well,
My kind of thing is I think there's arrogance of like, no, this is great, and but also, if I want to get kind of therapize myself a little bit, there's also kind of a young boy who just wants to be heard or didn't feel heard, which has kind of worked in my favor. But I definitely think for whatever reason, we share a both a get up and just do it because I want to do it. And actually, I can't see another option. You know? So,
I mean, I just thought I was great. I just distinctly remember like my late teens I just thought I was the shit.
I didn't, so I don't know what made me continue. but that's great that you had that.
I had that,
because you need that, especially in hip hop.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, I did get humbled a few times, like in different.
But I think intrinsically, I must have also just believed in myself because you wouldn't carry on doing something.
But I definitely was like, I'm the guy. Like, I definitely felt like I was the guy. Anyway, I eventually changed my style into a more hip hop style, and then got like accepted into that. And then I started my own little crew with some boys in my year. But one of the boys in that crew was a guy called Jan, and he was this kind of like amazing sort of bohemian. He had a Czech. He's from Czech, so he would always go back and forth to Czech and London, and he showed me Tom Waits. He showed me like art installation videos. He showed me lots and lots of hip hop I hadn't heard of. But he also had this like amazing like view of it all, that it was all art. It's nothing else. And I had this sort of like view of like, cool, but we can really do something with this. Like at that age, I believed that what we were doing was so important that we could really like do something with. I didn't know what that thing was. And he was always like, that's not why we do it. We do it for the purity of the art. And I was like, and you know, we're young, and I'm sort of like, we battled against each other quite a lot, but I still think that production-wise, me and him would produce together.
It's amazing, these sort of kind of like angels or like key people that come into our lives at a certain point that if they hadn't, might have not sparked off the rest of your journey. Or, you know, we learn or hear things, or people impart some knowledge or kind of mentor us even, and if we hadn't have met that person, like, would you be here today doing what you're doing? It's just, I think it's just a beautiful thing about life, really, isn't it?
And he made me, he like, I genuinely believe he's one of the best producers I've ever met. And if he wanted it, he could have been one of the biggest producers in the country.
Is it a case of what I was just talking about in terms of like having the confidence, maybe?
No, he just didn't want it. He just
wanted to do it, but
so he'd like, say you'd like talk about 12 Monkeys, that other film 12 Monkeys, where he'd be like, yeah, but have you seen La Jetée, that it's based on?
Okay.
And it's a film of stills, you know. And in some circles, that's completely wanky and like, oh, piss off, I don't care. But like in my circle, I was like, what? It's based on what? A French film that is made up of still images. And like I didn't know any of this, and he'd show me all this sort of stuff. So what we'd do was we'd put an RCA lead into the back of the TV, and then the RCA lead would come, you know, the white, the white, red, and yellow, would go into this PC.
This is before HDMI.
Yeah. So we'd basically record adverts and party political broadcasts.
Okay.
Straight from the TV into the computer that we'd chop up.
Yeah.
So we weren't even sampling like soul records.
Right.
We were sampling like sounds, like we were sampling like, he had a little dictaphone that he'd take everywhere, sampled like an accordion player, and then we had.
And you were doing this together. And he was older than you.
No, he was my age.
Okay, and went to Hampstead also.
Yeah.
So the start of you kind of sampling and producing, this was where it really began. It was that you with Jan.
Yeah. Making these, and then we'd make the drums on Fruity Loops, and then we'd get our friend Leo to come and play bass, and then he was the first person I saw where he'd layer bass lines. So he'd put two completely different bass lines over the top of each other, and see where the pocket sat from different takes. And he kind of had this. He kind of had this like method of sampling that I've basically taken on into my.
So he would record two different bass lines, and you and Jan would kind of pick,
kind of
or
like,
together you would all pick out.
Yeah, it was mainly like me and Jan, and for a while it was mainly Jan. With just like, I'd just watch him hodgepodge this kind of weird PC program. I don't even know what program we were using. I know the drums were Fruity Loops, but it was this like, it was almost like a mosaic of sounds that he'd managed to. We'd both managed to, we didn't think about clearing anything.
Was the plan for you to eventually rap over the top?
Yeah, so then we'd rap over the top.
You and Jan also?
And Jan and a guy called Joe and a guy called Luke.
Was there a room where this mostly happened
in Jan's attic.
Where's that?
In Kilburn, in this attic. And we'd make a mixtape every Sunday, and we'd call it the Sunday Roast mixtape.
Love that. It's just quite fun to like, I imagine like for me, it was in my bedroom in Dollars Hill with an MPC 1000 and tons of vinyl and Cubase.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I'm just sure that I just wanted to picture it a little bit, and just the idea that there was a room where it all started.
Yeah.
So to know that it's in, Jan's attic is interesting to me.
Jan's attic, and we'd do mixtapes,
and
we'd listen to instrumentals and rap over them, or like have something on loop. And then I basically like, it was becoming quite clear that I had this extra ambition than they did, which is absolutely fine. Like at the time I was pissed off that I was like, what are you lot doing? Like, we've got something so amazing here. Why aren't we like doing this? Why aren't we doing shows? Like, we used to do things like, we'd do a show, and every single show we played, we put Bruce Willis on the guest list. Just in case he showed up one day. Just in case. They were like, Bruce. We're like, yeah, can we have Bruce Willis on the guest list?
Was that for the promoter to go, well, these guys know Bruce Willis?
It was just a stupid... It was just for us to have a fuck around, you know?
Right.
That's how...
It's random as well.
So
of
random.
All the people, Bruce
we
Willis.
played Proud Galleries. You remember Proud Galleries?
Yes, I do remember Proud Galleries.
People were like, oh, have you got guest list? You got guest list? We got none left. But Bruce was still on it.
Or you tell your mate right at the last minute, you just say your name's Bruce Willis. You'll be sweet.
Yeah. So that was a little thing we had. Anyway, I got increasingly frustrated with them, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
That there was this kind of lack of ambition, or lack of like wanting to move it forward or push it. I always wanted to push it. I always wanted to like, why can't we do like, you're thinking too small sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then it coincided with 50 Cent coming out, and I despised 50 Cent. I thought it was a complete like disrespect to the genre. I felt personally let down by hip hop.
How did you feel when the Slim Shady LP came out?
I mean, I loved it.
That was 99.
Yeah.
Told you. 1999. Something about 99.
Yeah.
I had to mention that because that was also incredible.
It was also like a white guy doing it, right? So like we'd never really had...
The first two albums were so special to me.
So
I
amazing.
think Slim Shady was 99. I'm pretty sure Marshall Mathers LP must have been like 2001 or something.
Yeah, I was 17.
What a time.
I was 17 when the second one came out.
I
went on holiday with Louis and Theo. I remember that album coming out.
Really?
That was our like holiday album. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to take you off the 50 Cent thing.
But 50 Cent came out, and I found gangster rap like very I guess like I couldn't relate to it. I didn't speak to me.
Yeah.
But it got all this like massive like, he was huge.
Yeah.
And like looking back, I love that album. Like
Get Rich or Die
retrospectively,
Trying, yeah.
I love 50 Cent. I love Lil Wayne. I love that all the stuff that I was too snobbish.
Yes.
And it also coincided with me being an absolute snob. Like, I would only listen to like music that was made on like 3 streets in New York.
Yeah,
and
of
everything
course,
else was
same.
trash.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, like if you were signed to a major, it would be like, that's disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Completely unfounded kind of snobbery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was into like Def Jux records and
Same.
like all the LP.
Fantastic Damage.
Yeah.
It was a difficult album to get your head around, but it was
Mate,
crazy. Do you remember that thing 9mm? Deep Space 9mm. Do you remember that song?
Yeah. And there was...
Because I missed Company Flow. I did my backtracking.
Yeah, so I was Company Flow. So I was like... And Cannibal Ox.
Yeah. Cannibal Ox.
Cannibal
Yeah,
Ox was
definitely.
like,
yes.
Cannibal Ox were like...
And
so obnoxiously hard to listen to that like you had to kind of like
Aesop Rock.
I went to see Aesop Rock.
Right.
Like we would go, we'd make pilgrimage to go and see these guys.
Yeah.
I went to see Non-Fiction.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And they were
Black Helicopters.
And
when there's that album that came out, it wasn't nearly their first album, but it was The Future Is Now.
Future Is Now, followed by the Green CD.
Yes.
And then Uncle Howie Records they were on, and Uncle Harry was their crackhead uncle, and Necro was Ill Bill's brother. And there was all this sort of like and Arsonists. I was really into Arsonists. And when
this is so fun, Owen, because I don't get to talk. I don't get to even use this part of my brain much in my life now.
Like fully
Arsonists, I remember.
I was like, so can you imagine 50 Cent coming out, and I'm listening to Cannibal
and
Ops.
I was the same. I was like,
yeah,
I'm not into.
I drove to. I went to Amsterdam to see Non-Fiction, and Q Unique was supporting them.
Okay, yeah.
From the Arsonists.
Do you remember Copyright? Copyright was quite good as well.
I don't remember
Copyright. He was part of that crew, and then RJD2 produced for him. So then when Dead Ringer came out, that is such a good. Is that not a great album to talk about? Given I can feel that like his mix of sampling and stuff, perhaps would have been an influence. I don't know. I'm kind of asking, not
100%.
assuming. Do you remember the Dead Ringer album?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And
so
RJD2,
around that time,
RJD2 was like I don't know if he was the cooler Shadow, but he was like I related to him more than DJ Shadow, but essentially they were doing kind of like the same sort of things.
Yeah.
But it was also like Avalanches were like making mad sample records.
Yes, because there was DJ Dexter who did a DMC routine in '99. 99. I'm not gonna let this go. And he was the DJ in the Avalanches, and his routine in the DMCs was almost part of it was a live version of Frontier Psychiatrist.
Wow.
So when I had Frontier Psychiatrist, I was like DJ Dexter, and just the choir bit of Frontier Psychiatrist is very special.
Yeah, that's a special record.
Very special.
But there were other DJs like Yoda was doing like mad sets.
Yeah.
There was this kind of like. For me, there was like RZA, DJ Premier, like everyone who listens to my music now is like, oh, you must have been a big Jay Dilla fan, right?
Yeah.
I've got to be I love Jay Dilla. I think, obviously, I think he's amazing, but Jay Dilla wasn't really, like it was Primo and it was RZA that were really kind of like knocking like my head off with like, RZA on the SP1200.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
I was trying to figure it. And then the thing is, beautifully, is like, you'd listen to hip hop and then it's 2 rounds here. You might have heard the original soul record, then you hear the flip. But more often, because of our school, we'd hear the flip first.
Yes.
Then you'd hear the original and you'd be like, oh, Tears is just a Wendy Renee record.
Yes.
And that organ, bum, bum, boop, 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 boop. You know, I didn't know what that was. I didn't know you could play that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't realize that they were sampling. I was like, how's RZA playing all these things?
Yeah.
But when it came to like me getting sort of like despondent with hip hop, I was like, that's lost. I was like, because also I think a lot of copyright issues were coming in. This is what I think anyway. And no one was sampling anymore.
Yeah.
So all new Eminem stuff, all the 50 Cent stuff was
all played.
Like, it was like Scott Storch, and it was like it was players. And it didn't speak to me as much. And I kind of missed that old, because I was a snob. Yeah. Missed that old stuff. So what I did personally was like, I quit hip hop. And I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. And
because I don't like where this is going.
I don't like where it's going. It doesn't feel like me anymore. And so I learnt guitar and I started to write folk songs. I got back into my dad's old record collection. So I was listening to like Neil Young and Crosby, Stills and Nash and John Mayall and the Blues Breakers and like lots of folk basically and blues. I got super obsessed with blues.
How old were you at this point?
So I must have been like 20 or something, or like early 20s.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to rap anymore. I didn't want to like make hip hop anymore. I wanted to make songs. I got like hyper focused and hyper fixated on like
playing guitar,
singing and playing guitar, and like I was like, "What? This is piss!" Like we used to write whole like 16, sometimes 32 bar verses. And now I'm writing a song. I've only got to do a few lines.
Yeah.
I was like, this is easy.
Yeah.
Like, and also I was like good with the wordplay. So like,
yeah.
I could write a song. But to be honest, I was only really writing songs to learn guitar. I was like,
Yeah.
it helped my guitar playing.
But that musicality, I think, going forwards was probably crucial.
Yeah.
You know,
So
like I said, that wall that I kind of hit where I didn't learn an instrument. And
I mean, you say that, but I never really knew what I was playing or keys. Like I still have that today in the studio.
Yeah.
I'm like, what keys?
I can play Horse with No Name on the guitar.
Well, that's really good.
It's only 2 chords, and that's all that I can play. Yeah.
So then
it's my
I
party trick. No.
thought I was going to be an artist. I didn't really want to be an artist, I don't think. But like, I had a lot of like people telling me I should. And then I suddenly felt like I was in the world that I was meant to be in, that people like saw this as like, I went from like trying to get the guys in the hip hop to like take this seriously. And then I suddenly fell into this world of people who took it very seriously and actually were telling me that I was going to be this and I was going to be massive and I was going to be, they always used to
As
say,
a singer-songwriter, making folk music.
Excuse me. They used to say, you're next up to bat. That was the phrase. And all of a sudden I had like a manager and I had a lawyer and I had like...
Were you signed to a label?
I was signed on a management deal to a label, if that makes sense. And then I was really sort of like good at writing, and I was really like good with lyrics and words and melody, and my like almost like my musical encyclopedia was so big that I could like pull all this stuff in. And then I started like writing choruses for rappers, basically.
I remember Air. A song that you did for Wretch 32.
Yeah.
Again, why this is so fun for me is like even just from a distance, I've felt so dialed in to your journey.
Yeah.
And from a kind of what's really fun about these sort of having guests on in these interviews is it's very much from a fan's perspective. Like I've been a fan of these people, and like so I remember Air.
Yeah.
Which and it was on the Wretch 32 album.
It was, yeah.
And I thought it was great. And so I'd like to talk to you about that time, because was that coming out of being a folk singer and starting to write choruses for rappers? Is that
yeah, but like it's so weird that I was sort of like, no matter what I did, it always came back to hip hop and rap. Like no matter where or how I kind of like tried
sort of nothing you could do about it.
Nothing I could do about it. It was like I was like, I remember meeting Wretch really, really early. And because he was signed to the label that I was management signed to.
And you toured with him as well.
I toured with him, and there's a very important guy called Twin B who was working.
I know of Twin B. Yeah. We've met a few times, but yeah.
He was working for this company called Levels Entertainment. The main guy was a guy called Richard Antwi, who sadly passed away now. But Richard was this kind of like, he built this thing called Levels Entertainment, and it had like me and Wretch 32. An amazing singer called Daly, Josh Kumra, like lots of different sort of artists and creatives. But Twin was like his right hand man, right? So I met Twin all that time ago, like 15 years ago, maybe even longer.
And Twin is kind of, he's A&R manager.
So Twin was a DJ,
key player basically, and bringing these people together.
Radio host.
Yes,
but he was always an A&R.
Okay.
And he went from Ministry to Atlantic, and then is now the president of Def Jam UK. And
it's a good job title, isn't it?
Not bad, yeah.
President.
With his twin brother. How amazing is that?
Amazing.
Yeah, they're co-presidents. But he comes into my story there.
Yeah.
But actually comes in again a bit later. So I'm writing these things, the hooks and stuff, and I'm feeling like the artist thing isn't really doing anything, because I was just trying to like mesh like Wu-Tang and the Beatles. I was trying to like do this kind of hip hop folk crossover sort of thing, and I got to be honest, Demon Days by Gorillaz really fucked me up mentally, and so did Panic Prevention by Jamie T. Both those albums really fucked me up because
I just like the way you put that.
I heard them and I was like, they've done it.
Okay.
I was like, they've done it.
Okay.
They got there before me.
Yes.
You know, they got there before me. They fucking like if you think about Demon Days, it had Roots Maneuver on, which at the time no one was really fucking with Roots Maneuver. It had MF Doom on, where no one knew who MF Doom was. It was like, what? They've got Doom on a record.
But also Damon Albarn, to be able to reinvent yourself in that way, from making Blur and that music to... That's astonishing.
It's astonishing. And his melodies are just like beautiful. And they had De La Soul on it. They had Roots Maneuver. They had MF Doom. They had Ike Turner does a piano solo, uncredited on it.
What year was Demon Days? Is this like 2005, 2006, maybe? Something like that?
And at the time, I was hanging out in Camden with like all of the sort of like indie sleaze, they call it now. Like all the like pretty big, famous... But I didn't give a... I literally, like... I didn't care.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was, like... do this weird, like, blend of, like... And to be honest, I'm still trying to do it. This sort of blend of, like, folk or maybe, like, rock. I don't know, like...
Yeah.
Into hip-hop. Anyway, I digress. Then the artist thing just wasn't really working for me because I was... getting like super obsessed. I'd be obsessed with like Etta James for like 3 weeks or 6 weeks, and then I'd make all loads of like Stax Soul records, and then I'd be obsessed with Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then I'd be obsessed with. So it was never landed on something that like a label or a management could like grip hold of. Like I was played on. I remember one of the greatest moments of my life was Zane Lowe played my record, and then he played Biggie, and I was like, I've just been played on national radio, but like before Biggie.
What record was that?
It's a record called These Streets.
And was it you singing?
And me singing, yeah. Or sort of singy, rappy, sort of like...
Okay.
Me trying to figure it out, trying to do this mashup blend thing. Anyway, that wasn't really working. And then I remember Twin. So I sat down with Twin and I had this kind of big chat. And he was like, why don't you just be a writer, producer? And that was the first time I was like, well... yeah, then I can do a disco tune and then one day do a pop tune, then one day do a folk tune, then one day do a hip hop tune. Then I was like, hold on a minute. Like I was totally free.
Yeah.
I never really wanted to be the face of anything.
Yeah.
I never really loved being on stage.
Yeah.
Like even touring with Rich. Not really. Like I liked, there's a definite buzz that you get. But
it wasn't your favourite part of it.
Dude, tour's rubbish. Tour was like...
yeah.
I had a really shit time on tour.
Yeah. I mean, for me, touring was like in your 20s, great. But I wouldn't want to tour now. I don't like doing anything that doesn't mean... like that means I can't go to bed like any later than midnight.
Yeah. I mean, now, no, forget it. But like in my 20s, I was still like...
But you still... it's quite a dirty life as well.
It's kind of like not what you think it's going to be. You don't stay anywhere for long enough. You don't really bed down anywhere. You don't really know like what day it is anymore. You just know like what city you're in.
My life for a very long time was waking up and just opening this little porthole because, you know, you had the bunks on a tour bus. And this is like the best way that you can tour, I guess, the best it gets. And it would always, so I'd wake up and then just go like that. And it'd always be like either a car park or a chip shop with some bloke walking by.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
It's weird.
You know, it's weird. And... you know, so I did a lot of touring, probably in the best way that you can, and it was fine for the time. I was also drinking, which helped. But like doing it now in my sort of 30s sober, I wouldn't really enjoy touring anymore, I don't think. No. But I just want to go back, what you were saying. So the performance aspect wasn't huge for you.
I was just obsessed with the studio.
You were very happy to...
I just was like, that's where I felt I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I was drinking as well at the time, and I was kind of like making a fool of myself at these industry parties a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like a West, like where we're from, Northwest London party is one thing, and that's how I partied.
Yeah.
And then you take that energy into a industry party where like it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right.
It didn't work on a number of occasions. So. When Twin said you should be a producer, I was like, it was this kind of light bulb moment, really. That like, I never really considered it as a career. I never really thought. But like, it's weird when you say like when you click into the right thing for you.
Yeah.
like 8 months later, I had a publishing deal, and like then then I was like using everything I'd learned from school to that point, and like it put me in a bracket that no one else sat in.
Yeah.
Like,
well, your music now, to me, it feels full circle.
Yeah.
It feels like it includes everything that we've already talked about today in terms of all of your different musical influences.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. And it kind of, there was a time I was before I had any sort of like major success, I was in this studio in Acton where like I had the tiniest room in the building, and you had to go through a studio to get to my room. So you had to go through this like big room to get to my shitty small room. You had to be like, sorry, every time you went back and forth.
Me again.
Yeah. And it was like the whole block was all of the sort of like the guys that were doing all the Afrobeat and sort of trap records that were doing really well.
In the big studio? In the...
in the big studio, but also all the other rooms.
Oh, okay, right.
So like I was making like soulful hip hop and like not really getting anywhere with it. And they were all making like, they were doing like the J Hus record, and they were doing like all these like, and they were coming back with like plaques and like #1 things.
Still a good environment to be in though.
Really good. And they're really, I loved them all. They were really good guys. But I had this moment basically where I said, okay, do I need to ask one of these guys if I can shadow them? Like, because I can't authentically make Afrobeat because I don't listen to it and I didn't grow up on it. So I felt like a fraud to like, you know, and production's all about sound choices. Anyone can put the drums in the right place, but it's the sounds you're choosing, right? So I was like, these guys are having like massive success. Like, do I just like change lanes basically? Like, is this just not working? Do I like, you know, go and humble myself and ask to, you know, what their process is, you know, like how do I make trap or how do I make Afrobeat? Anyway, Deneo was in the room next to me, right? And we never saw each other because I was he'd come in at night and I'd come in the day. And I came in one day, and outside of his room was this old busted up Wurlitzer, like this whirly electric piano. And I said to the studio manager, I was like, whose whirly's that? And he was like, oh, it's mine. It was in Deneo's room, but he doesn't want it. And I was like, oh, can I have it? And he was like, yeah, just get it out of the corridor. Like, and I was like, so I got a mate to pick it up with me. It had no legs. The legs were fucked. They're heavy. So I put it on a flight case, and the flight case was too tall that the sustain pedal was hanging. The only way to mic it up, it was busted. The only way to mic it up was go through the headphone jack. And if you wanted more vibrato, you had to use pliers because the button was gone.
You're right.
So Twin came to me and he said, I'm signing Stormzy's second record, and I really want you to come in and chat to him about soul music and sampling. And because he knew what my views on sampling were and how I would sample, and like the importance of knowing where the sample came from.
So Twin B is kind of a visionary, really, because I don't imagine that Stormzy had been having conversations about soul records up until that point.
No.
And also, at what stage in Stormzy's career was he when you guys kind of came together?
So Stormzy,
what had he already done?
Like, it's so weird, yeah? We used to text each other. Like, we'd never met. We used to text each other while he was making Gang Signs and Prayers. So we text.
But you'd obviously met, otherwise you wouldn't sort of be...
No, I didn't. I'd never met him. Twin gave me his number to maybe do something on Gang Signs and Prayers. But like, in hindsight, Twin told me you weren't pushy enough, basically. Not pushy enough, but like, I kind of was like, yo, do you want to do something? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, cool.
Yeah.
But I was never like...
But then you'd end up talking about other stuff.
We'd end up talking about other stuff, sending each other stuff.
Yeah, it's strange. You meet those people along the way that you just instantly get on with and become friends. And I always, when that happens, go, why does it happen with that person but not with that person?
Totally.
But I guess that's the beauty of life. But you find those people that you just instantly become good mates.
Yeah. The thing with Storms is like, when I first met him, we sat down, I think we spoke for about 3 hours, and it was all about music, and it was all like. He told me that he had this. He was like, "Oh, have you heard this middle eight?" Yeah? And this, like, I think it was like an Adele record, and he was like, "This is in my top 3 middle eights." And I was like, "Dude, no one has a list of middle eights, let alone like a grime MC. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are your other? What's the list? I want to hear what your favorite bridges are. You know, your favorite middle eight." So he would play me that. I'd play him like Radiohead. Then he'd play me something. I'd play him like, I don't know, Curtis Mayfield or. You know, stuff that he just didn't know. And he was playing me stuff I didn't know. And we
beautiful.
Then it was really nice. And this is before we even spoke about working together. It was just Twin just brought me in to sort of like have a chat basically. Just like chill and have
but this was his second album time, so he's really established by this point. And
I mean, that's the beauty of Stormzy. Really is like by that time, like he literally could have made that record with anyone. And if you actually look at the credits for that, for Heavy Is the Head, at the time, there were like 2 or 3 big names on it, but everyone else was just about to do something.
Remind me, so Heavy Is the Head is the first album?
No, so Gang Signs and Prayers is the first.
Is the first, then Heavy Is the Head.
Then Heavy Is the Head.
And at what point were you involved musically? Did you produce on the second album?
Well, this is where the Neo story comes in. So so he did the first one with Fraser T. Smith, pretty much all Fraser, with other producers.
Who's not a grime producer?
No,
He's
amazingly,
more of a
no.
songwriter, right?
Songwriter, he wrote Set Fire to the Rain. Like he's had an amazing career, lovely guy. So I went into Atlantic Records and I said, I'm gonna write. So basically, at the end of that conversation, Stormzy said to me, I want you to find me a sample, but I want it to be British. And I was like, okay. So I went off and I tried to find a British soul sample. But like, then I really hit a wall because you can't really sample Soul to Soul. You can't really sample Sade.
That's quite hard.
You can't really sample Amy. You can't really sample like the kind of like staples because they're so cool.
No, that's hard.
Like, what are you gonna do to it? Then if you go any further back, they just sound American anyway. They sound like that. So
who did you find?
So basically, like I was struggling. I was struggling, and I was like,
because if it was from America, no problemo.
Fine, whatever.
This is what you've been doing your whole life.
I got a bank of samples I can flip. So I was like really like struggling, and then I thought, well,
the Beatles.
I was like, I can write soul music. I just can't sing it. I just don't have a kind of soulful voice. I was like, why don't I just write him a soul song, and then flip that. So I went to Atlantic Records and I said, I want to do that. I said I'm gonna write Stormzy a soul song, and they were pretty much laughed me out of the room. They weren't like Twin didn't. Twin got it. No one else really got it. I think they were like, and they were like, oh, do it with Fred Gibson. Fred again. They were like, do it with Fred Gibson, and I was like, love love it. I get what you're saying, but can I do it with Dan Kaplan, who was signed to Atlantic at the time? He was a soul singer. Okay. It's like, I want to do it with Dan Kaplan. I had a real vision. I didn't want to compromise.
Yeah. And did you already have an existing relationship with Dan Kaplan?
I'd worked with him.
Because I feel like there is a crew of highly skilled musicians that is in your camp.
Yeah.
You know, like Fred Cox.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just seen names pop up, and I know that you all collaborate together and make amazing stuff together as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Dan came. I said, "Look, give me a few days with Dan. I want." And anyway, Dan came, and we just wrote soul records on this Wurlitzer.
Oh, sick!
And that's all we did. It was just Dan's. We were writing down, and then
chords. On that. Yeah.
Dan's amazing writer. So, we did like 5. And then I flipped them. So Dan left, and then I flipped them and put beats, like not loads, but just like chopped them, pitched them, screwed them. You know,
Dan's vocals as well.
And the whirly.
Okay, yeah.
And then I hid them in a playlist of songs that had samples in, actual samples in.
Right.
So then when I went to the studio with Storms, I had this like playlist, and I was like, I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to tell anyone what I've done. And if it hits, then it worked. And if it doesn't hit, then it didn't work.
It's better than being like, I spent.
I've got this idea that we've, write our own.
So they were kind of buried amongst other samples that were sort of American soul samples.
No, I did find some. There's a girl called Arlissa, British singer.
Some British stuff. Okay.
So I like flip some.
Yeah, because
British stuff.
You want the artist to be enthusiastic about it without you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because otherwise it's, you want the spark.
Yeah.
They've got to have the spark for it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you kind of buried
So I'm going through these things and he's like, next. Playing these beats. Anyway, it lands on one of them and he was like, whoa. What? He was like, what's that?
Was it one of yours?
Yeah, it was one of the Dan Kaplan ones.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like, shit, has it worked? Yeah. And he was like, pull that up. Put it on loop, and I was like, okay. Now knowing Stormzy, as well as I know him now, that's on the album.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If he does that, because he doesn't make loads and loads and loads.
Yeah.
So he kind of was like mumbling in the corner, sort of writing, and then I was like, okay, cool. Then there's a guy called AOD in there who's an amazing producer and an exceptional guitarist, and we started like playing stuff, and then like. To be honest with you, I think I got passively high that day because I was obsessed at the time with Michael Kiwanuka's Love and Hate. And there was a moment on Love and Hate where a song, you think it's going to blow, but actually it goes into this like beautiful kind of choral moment with voices. And I was like, we need a bit. Me and Stormzy were like standing there facing each other like, we need this bit in this, blah, blah. So like, afterwards I was like, fuck, I think I was a bit high there. Because I've made this weird outro basically, and
right.
It kind of goes off on its own journey with like acoustic guitars and vocals. Anyway, then he was like, "Oh yeah, cool, let's rap," and I hadn't recorded any of his, and I was kind of like, "Oh no, I need to lay this." Like, I was like, "Have you got anything?" And he was like, "Oh, not really, but like." I was panicked, right? Because I was like, "Oh no!"
He wanted you to rap.
No, I wanted to record what he was written.
Oh yes,
but he wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
He was like, "Oh no, I don't know if it's ready or I don't know if it's right." And I was just like, "Oh no, is this my like opportunity to like? Is everyone gonna forget this ever happened?" Sort of
right.
And anyway, it took a year and a half for me to get those verses from him.
What song was this?
So the song turned into a song called 1 Second.
Okay, yeah. I remember you playing me actually.
Yeah. Which eventually had Her from America, the R&B singer Her. She sung the chorus. So we replaced Dan Kaplan's.
Yeah.
Vocal.
So was Stormzy's verses the last thing to happen a year and a half later?
Pretty much. I think I had Her's vocal. We recorded Her's vocals before I had his verses.
Right. So
and then
you had this wonderending song and waiting for the final touch.
Might not go on the album.
Okay, right.
We were
and
waiting.
then he came through. I mean,
he came through. But the beauty of that particular story and moment in my life was like I was having a crisis of style and confidence with the style of music I was making in that studio with all those guys making J Hus and stuff.
Right.
And I actually made one of my most successful records on a piece of equipment that one of them threw away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no clearer sign to stick to your guns.
Yes.
Stick to your style, stick to what you're doing.
Of course.
And then, you know how the world works. All it takes is someone like Stormzy to be like, that's sick.
And then suddenly it's not too dissimilar what you're doing and what they're doing because you've got Stormzy and J Hus records coming out of the same building.
Coming out of the same building.
Yeah.
And then also people are like, oh yeah, we always liked what you do. We always loved that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you didn't. But it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, like a co-sign from someone like him really set me as a producer, set me on a path of like back to like full confidence, back to like like flipping samples. So then what I do was like, well, that worked. We wrote our own soul record and flipped it, so we don't have to clear any publishing.
Yeah.
So then I've kind of gone on with that strain.
I was going to ask you, what do you think it is about, like, from working with Stormzy, obviously, like, how successful he is, natural talent is really, you know, says it all. But what qualities do you think he has that has also meant that he's become so successful? Is it a kind of, I'm thinking of things like a work ethic, an open-mindedness. What is it, do you think, about having worked with Stormzy so closely that you think has I mean, but take the natural talent as read
given.
kind of thing. But do you think he has anything else to him that's meant
He has
his rise has been so like,
meteoric.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think there's two things. I think he has this confidence which allows him to if he went to our school, he'd have gone, the Beatles are sick, and what?
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
He's that guy.
Yeah.
So he has this confidence in himself, his taste, that what, you're gonna laugh at me because I like Blur.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And everyone
that makes
goes,
a lot of sense.
everyone goes, oh no, that's not what we're saying. You know, he's that sort of stature.
Yes.
Just socially.
Yeah.
Take away his fame and whatever. But
Yeah.
like socially, he has that confidence about him. Like, I always remember when I first met him, I said, how come you did that Little Mix tune? I said, what was that? Not that I'm knocking it or nothing, but like, what was the thought process? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, that was a bit of a weird move to go from like super cool grime star to like collabing with Little Mix. I said, why did you do that? He went, beats hard.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah.
He was like, sometimes I put the instrumental on in my car and I just rap my verse.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, you actually just did it because the beat was hard.
That really, that really answers my question, man. I mean,
the other thing,
that's great. Like the confidence, and and I don't care. This is sick.
This is sick
because he loves music.
He loves music.
He loves music.
He loves music.
Yeah.
Like I've only met a few people in my life that I totally connect with on the love of music. We might not always love the same music.
Yeah.
The other thing is I think I'm pretty confident in saying this. He is the most competitive man I've ever met in my life.
Okay. In everything?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
When we were doing the third album.
I wanted to talk to you about that because the whole setting and environment, and it looked amazing. And that was actually what I wanted to talk to you about also, because it from the outside looking in just looked like a very special time. I mean, where you made it, the chemistry of you guys in the studio. There's a clip on your social media of coming up with something really quite key. Yeah. And I mean, talk to me about that time a little bit. Well, I think we're running out of time, but maybe this is a good happy to end on.
Yeah. Well, again, Twin. He called me and he said we're gonna do. Sorry.
That's all right.
Twin called me and he said we're putting a camp together for the third album. We really like you to be there for the whole time. And I said, and I love camps. That's where I like thrive. I love like, right, we're going away, we're all living together. And we're just like,
how long were you there for?
I was there for a month. So we lived together for a month on an island, not tropical or anything. It was off the coast of Essex.
I've been there actually. I've done a gig on that island, I think. You can only go there at certain times of the year, otherwise you can't drive there. You got to get a boat.
Yeah. So it's tidal. The causeway is tidal. So like you have like 45 minutes to get on and off.
That's it. Yeah.
Otherwise the tide comes in.
What a great place to work on an album, though, even just because of that.
Yeah. So we had this big house, and behind a bookcase, sort of secret door, was this studio with a
beautiful
big SSL desk.
Love a hidden bookcase.
Love a hidden bookcase.
Love that.
And we lived there, and we all each had a studio like in our own quarters, so we could go off and do bits. And then there was a guy called Progression who I always get this. I can't say this. Executively produced the whole album. Right. So it was like Stormzy and him at the helm. And he's just another guy with just like a complete wealth of music, and like gets you know when you just throw out a reference and they're like oh yeah, sick. You're like, oh, you know that record, okay, amazing.
It's almost like you've found your people, but you've all been working very hard independently to end up together. Yeah. And suddenly you've got all of your knowledge and they've got all of theirs.
Yeah.
Is there like, because it looked very relaxed and chilled and in the exact type of environment that you would want to make music. But when you're entering something like that and going, okay, we've got a month here, is there any pressure, did you feel, to
massively.
like come up with, and is there a goal of like, we need to have a certain amount of things done at the end of the month?
That was never said, but I felt it.
You did feel some pressure of...
Yeah. I felt like... See, for me, like, what was really clear was like the importance of the time. So it was like no one else had been in that position. No young sort of like rapper, black or white, had ever been in that position. Like an eagerly awaited third album, just played Glastonbury, wore a Banksy, like all of these things were like, we were like, lots of conversations. What's your responsibility? What do you feel is your responsibility? Do you care? Do you want to talk about it? And it became very clear that these like pillars of the record were forming. And that was what I was sort of more interested in, was like culturally the importance of this moment.
Yes.
And your life, and what do you feel necessary to record and not record? Yeah. And more than like, is it going to go number one or is it going to be the biggest thing, whatever, that wasn't in my mind at all. It was just every morning. So Stormzy is a super religious guy, and every morning he'd say a prayer, right? So he'd get everyone gathered. He'd get everyone gathered in after breakfast. He'd say a prayer, and we'd all listen. And people would come and go, right? So like Jacob Collier came, and they loved it so much that he went and he came back. Yeah. And then like other brilliant, like P2J, Knox Brown, George Moore, Dion, who they call him the Chord Lord. Like
Chord Lord, I love that.
People were coming and going, right? And then after the prayer, he'd kind of like set out the intentions of the day. And it was said in many different ways, but the message was always the same. Every day was, I just want excellence. He was like, I want Bohemian Rhapsody, all of the lights, excellence. And that could have been a chord, that could have been a snare drum, that could have been anything. But he knows when he hears it. That's what I will say. Yeah. When he hears it and he feels it, then
that again speaks to his success. In a way, it's a connection with himself, and he knows what he wants.
Yeah. Just also to tell a story on how, at times, how difficult it was, but within the same breath, how clear it was I said to him, I'm going to go away, I was going to take a couple days to find some samples. And while I was there, I said, look, just give me a couple days. I want to just go into my process and I want to find some sounds and samples and stuff. So I went away and I had this amazing room that looked out over onto the sea or the river or whatever it is. And I just spent 2 days just digging, like old school, like going from record shops, that kind of feel.
Did you bring vinyl with you, or was it you had recorded?
No, it was like recordings or like going like, there's this amazing app called Radio with like 5 O's. Okay. That you can pick a country and a decade, and it will play you what would have been on the radio. Oh, wow. I'll show it to you after this. Wow. Yeah, so like radio, I always find good samples on that. So you can go to like Venezuela in 1970.
So you spent 2 days kind of digging.
Like old school digging, like we know digging. Yeah. Like Hampstead school digging. Yeah. I was like digging.
And it might just be 3 seconds.
Yeah. And then I make a beat or a little chord or a little choir and by this time I know what he likes. Right? And I've been living with him for like.
I'd imagine within you there must have been such a thing of a sort of pressure and excitement of like, this is what I love to do. I can't believe I get to do this. Yeah. But then also the stakes being quite high at the same time. Yeah. I can't imagine what that must have felt like for you as an artist, just internally. It must have been.
Well, it was like I say. So I made, and I don't really do this as a producer. Like I made 15 beats in 2 days. Yeah. And I don't like some people that's nothing to, but some people that's loads. For me, that's loads. Right? Yeah. I don't really do that. Yeah. But I was so locked into this thing that I was kind of like, was just making these beats. And then I went down on the third day, and I said, yeah, I've got some bits to play you. And he was like, all right, we'll find some time. And then at lunchtime that day, he called me into the main studio, and he was like, cool, yeah, go for it. Play me what you got. And I played him 15 beats. And every beat I played, he fully respected and listened to and nodded his head and was in, and then was like, cool, at the end, play another one. 15 beats, 2 days of like pouring everything I have into it. And at the end of the 15 beats, he was just like, yeah, nah. And it was like, oh. So in one hand, it was, I was like, oh, none of them hit. None of them landed. And on the same hand, it was like, well, at least I know what he doesn't want from me.
Yeah.
You know?
What was your thinking then?
Well, so it plays into like, you know, you obviously like as a creative, you're like, oh, well, like you get imposter syndrome. You get like everyone else in the house is better than me and all this sort of stuff like that. But I have always had something in me that goes, yeah, but no one quite does it like me. Like you might be better than me, but no one quite does it like me.
You have to have that.
And then I go back, and then we're in again, and then we make hide and seek, or we make please.
There's a very special moment where you have a mic and you're just kind of humming and singing.
Yeah.
What track did that end up becoming again?
That ended up becoming the lead single, which is called Hide and Seek.
Hide and Seek, yes, exactly. And it's just so lovely that such a special moment was captured.
I know, yes.
It's
I remember
a beautiful
when I got
clip.
Sent that footage. And
Yeah,
like,
it's
wow,
beautiful footage.
You caught that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that after you'd played the 15 beats that weren't the ones?
I can't remember when that was in the timeline, but it was like, it's just another sort of moment of being allowed to experiment, being allowed to, because we'd got those chords on the very first day, and then he went. This is why he's who he is, because where it was just me and him in the studio. It was probably like a week later or something, and he said, "Can you pull up what we did on the very first day?" And I was like,
so he kind of banked
it somewhere, and then we pulled up there's a video of it. It's the very first thing anyone played, and it was progression, Casa playing these chords,
right?
And he'd remembered, and he pulled it back, and I was like, "Oh, this is," and then we started writing the whole thing, and then we didn't know what it was going to be. We were like, genuinely, we thought it might be an interlude. Genuinely thought we don't know what this is. I said, can you bounce it out as it is? Send it to me, and I put headphones on. And I was making an interlude, genuinely.
Right.
So what I did is I pitched it up 3 semitones. I put vinyl crackle on it.
Yeah.
I think I sped it up a little bit. And I did some production things that I do on stuff to make it sound like how I like it to sound.
Yeah.
Then I played it back in the room. And he was like, what have you done to my voice? I said, I've pitched it up, which is what I do to all samples.
Yeah.
I always pitch it up 3 semitones, any sample.
Okay.
I don't know why. It always just sounds great.
Yeah.
And then he was like, put it down 1. So I put it down 1 because I pitched it up 3, so it's down to 2. And it did something to his voice that made it sound like, not like him, but you could still tell it was him. It gave it this like thing.
Yeah.
And then I grabbed the mic that was attached to my thing called a TC Helicon that gives it that sort of Bon Iver type harmony, sort of auto-tuning harmony thing.
Yeah.
Started singing over it, and all of a sudden we had this thing that was like, no,
it just happens and just comes together.
Yeah. Something that we thought was just an interlude turned into the lead single of the whole record.
That's crazy. What was, when you'd finished and everyone is going home, what was the feeling? Was it, we've done something really special here?
Yeah.
We've really made the most of this.
It was.
What was that?
I was completely exhausted.
Like?
I was completely and utterly
I can imagine.
drained and exhausted, and I didn't want to make music for a year. I was like totally just
battery
done.
on empty.
Yeah,
but
everyone.
But knowing that you gave it your all.
Yeah. Like I left everything on the field. Like I kind of like, and even then you were like, oh, could I have done something else? Could I have gone?
Yeah.
But yeah, we all left, and I felt like I still feel about the record now, is that, in my opinion, we, like, no matter what you think about that record or anything to do with like what it did or whatever, I always felt like I and we had helped a young man say what he needed to say at that time of his life.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt when we left.
Yeah.
And that's what I still feel now.
Yeah.
Is that we were just there to help him say something really important to him.
And also, working in this way, you get to share these magical moments with people that are actually could be quite intimate, very special.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
There's nothing that would make you more present when something like that is happening. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing, that you get to share these magical moments with Stormzy or whoever it is that you're working with that you're not likely to forget.
Yeah,
and that's
definitely.
really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
And like I may never work with him again, like commercially or whatever. But like I have such a like strong bond with him. Yeah. Like just me and him. Yeah. That like, and I'm part of his history. Yeah. That's fine with me. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
and whether
different.
you work together or just remain friends or whatever is
exactly.
Great. Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure we'll make music together for the rest of our lives, but whether it comes out or not, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like we solidified this sort of bond and relationship over music. Yeah. And you know, we don't chat loads and like we're not like friends in that sense. Yeah. But like when we see each other, it's like it's nice, man. It's special. It's the sort of like bond and relationship you always think you would have with an artist when you start to produce records, you know. And he'll go on to do whatever he goes on to do, and I go on to do whatever I go on to do. But we'll always have those, especially 1 Second. That was like a special record for both of us.
Yes, I just, it's amazing. And whether, you know, the stars align to release another single or whatever, it's just, that's the kind of magical bit about art, is that you never kind of know. But I'm also so glad we spoke about your time on that island making that album, because like I said, from the outside looking in, it just looked like a very special time. Yeah.
Well, it was like my dad used to tell me stories about bands in the 60s that did that. Exactly. They'd go and get a house in the country and make an album. Yeah. So I was always, like, I felt while I was there, I was really present and really like, well, I'm doing the thing.
This is what it's about. This is what I've, we could talk about so much more stuff, Owen, but I think we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining me, brother.
Thank you very much.
We could have spoken all day, but
for sure.
That's the way it is. But thank you. Thanks so
you're
much,
welcome.
man. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode of I'm As Shocked As You Are. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we will see you next time.